Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, I think I'm walking into another storm. I should say I've been walking and now it's about to become a storm. But I don't melt and I don't have that good clothes on, although I have a green t-shirt to match the trees. Um, Gotten a little break today, uh, did some writing, and I've been studying a case that's coming before the Supreme Court, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Let's talk about Griner, I think that's her name, Brittany, whose trial is ongoing in Russia. And at this distance, and not having read any of the court papers, it sounds to me like she was stopped in possession of a controlled substance, but of such a small amount, if in fact she really had it on her and it wasn't placed on her, but of such a small amount that I would think it was for personal use. I doubt she had a doctor's note or anything with her. So, in an enlightened jurisdiction in the United States, she would be put probably in a deferred program, maybe been told to, go to some sessions so that she didn't use it. And if she had a medical reason for it, then it might be considered differently. But as an athlete, an Olympic athlete, they get concerned about these things. And so there's that. But that doesn't seem to be the way it's playing out in Russia. And one of the reasons may be that if you fight the trial, the disposition would come at the time of sentencing. And they talk about years she could be facing. Now, there were stories back in the 60s and 70s about people going abroad and getting caught in places where they had small or large amounts and they were never coming out again. And the jails and prisons were pretty terrible. So what's my position on this? I think it's unfortunate if she becomes traded for another Russian, because her value is not so great as compared. And I don't know what the United States will do with that. Am I being cynical? No, I don't think so. I think they make a pretty cold-blooded assessment of how to deal with these things. So that's how I see that. I hope it works out for her. And it seems that her local lawyers, who are both Russian, seem to be very sensitive to the courtrooms that they're in, and so that may help her a great deal. We can only hope. Now, the thing that I've been reading up on is this initiative on independent state legislatures. And what does all that mean? It's another code for the Republicans to try to get around how we choose electors and how we gerrymander districts and how we oversee the actual election. Now, not to get too deep into the weeds, but it's pretty simple, I think, how it's supposed to work. It's supposed to work this way. The U.S. Constitution says that the time, manner of elections for federal officials will be set by the legislatures. And that has been read through history to encompass all of the state machinery, including the courts and so forth. But the Republicans want to say, no, it's just the legislature. And they can then do what they want. And if they can do what they want, then they might choose other electors. Now, I think this runs afoul of the 14th Amendment, which talks about privileges and immunities applied to every citizen. And I also think it runs afoul of common sense in terms of the language. So why are we talking about this? Because there's a case in North Carolina involving gerrymandering that's going to the Supreme Court, and we have a 6-3 court. I think we've reached a point where if we're going to accept what the Supreme Court says in its 6-3 vote, when we know it's corrupt and we know it's by political hacks and we know it's there fulfilling a contract that they made on behalf of the Federalists to get to the court in the first place, I don't think we can let that stand. And I think the public should be talking, despite all my experience in my life, against the court, the highest court, which cannot be overturned or reversed, but is going down a path which is very destructive of basic rights and needs. You know, we've already seen the Second Amendment, we've seen the Roe v. Wade. And it's interesting, in support of this theory, they cite the case of Gore in the year 2000 and the words of Roberts in that opinion. Well, if you read that decision, it says very interestingly that what they decided has no precedential value in any other case. So it's not like it was an unpublished opinion, But it is an opinion that you're not supposed to rely on for any purpose except the Gore case, the Bush v. Gore. So there's that, and it gives you an idea of the weakness of the argument. Now, who else in history did anything like this, came up with a BS theory, and then proceeded upon it? Well, there was this guy named Hitler who did, and he used it basically as a cover. Having tried riot in the streets and having been sentenced and gone to prison, when he came out, he used the weak underbelly of a democracy to impose control by these theories and so forth. And thereby he gained more and more power, and then finally just took over the government. So is that happening here? Well, not if we can help it. But if we doze, then it will happen. And consider the fact that it's not by accident that 75% of the Republicans believe the election was stolen. And why do they believe that? Because we don't say enough that it was a lie. We do not say that he was trying to steal an election he soundly lost, and that the corruption is all on the other side. And my rule of thumb has always been, you can't win the argument you don't make. We haven't been making that argument. And closer to home here in Virginia, our Governor Youngkin, who's already proven himself to be a Trump clone, is moving around like he's going to run for president, having said we were going to have his devoted services as a governor. Well, I don't want him as a governor, but I certainly don't want him as a president. And I think Virginia would be better off suffering him than if he had a valid and viable campaign to become president. So there's that. On the EPA, I think it's bad that Biden is, on the one hand, giving us symbolic shows of support for the environment, but on the other hand, he's prepared to open up the land, the public lands, for drilling. But here's a not so secret thing that's true for the fossil fuels, the industry, oil and gas. And it is that they're moving out of that business. But what they're doing is they're tying up renewables and creating bars to citizens like you and me, having, say, more than a renewable that saves you money on electricity and doesn't allow for you to have, say, solar panels that would do more than save you money, actually make you a profit. Think of a solar panel farm. And there's, right here in Loudoun County, there's a brilliant lady who has been working on such things. So that's what I'm thinking today. Holly's doing well. She was very busy yesterday, marching upstairs and stuff. And as I said, we're going to have a storm here soon, and I may be soggy. But my phone will survive because I have a place to keep it without ruining it. And here we are in the Cathedral of Trees on another wonderful day. Have a wonderful 4th of July. We'll talk to you soon.